Hello, dear friends and family. Welcome to the Deep Soul Work podcast. Today, we're going to be talking about spiritual community and the establishment of what we're calling the Deep Soul Work community. And I feel that this is very, very important and timely now because I feel like community is the essence. That community itself is what is really going to save, protect, and deliver us as people into our into the greater promise of our lives and our potential. So, I'm most interested in community that nurtures our essence, community that nurtures our soul, which is why we're calling it the deep soul work community. Now, the thing is that me, my work, friends, and family have essentially already created community. We're already functioning as a community. So all we're doing now is formalizing it more, bringing it all together much more consciously under an umbrella that we're calling the Deep Soul Work community. And the idea is to uh, open it up so that there is more participation, so that it is easier to plug into in the various ways, and in the various ways that we are able to help nurture and harmonize with each other for our greater good and our greater growth. Um, and there's a deeper aspect of community that I also wanted to get into, which I think is very important, because I've come to believe and come to know that we are in community naturally, not by accident, that we are in community because there are deeper aspects within us that actually connect. So whether it be like a past life connection or a deeper, more profound cultural connection, that we are drawn together, magnetized, if you will, uh, from some very profound uh, reasons and purposes, and that our challenge is to discover that, to uncover that, and to realize the sacredness of the bonds that we have together. So I want to get into more of that later, but we have some special guests here, and I want to introduce a dear old friend who is our promised special guest today, and his name is Mr. James Hendricks. And I want to allow him to share a little bit about his thoughts about spiritual community from his experience. And welcome, James.
Thank you. Well, thank you,
Yeah, how are
guys.
you?
I am doing well. It's wonderful to be here. So, on the
Yeah.
subject of community, I've had the privilege of being in a number of different communities focused on spiritual development. Some of them are more traditional Buddhist sanghas. Um, One in particular that I might be focusing on tonight, if you're interested, Dove, is the Sisiwas Medicine Circle. That was a Native American group in the Pacific Northwest of the United States, and they were practicing the traditional healing ways of the Coast Salishan people. That was a very beautiful community that came together to heal. And,
Right.
obviously it extended back into pre colonial times. And a lot of the focus was on the seasons. The winter was when people came together to heal and to bond and to really deepen community bonds. Um, there wasn't a whole lot to do in winter. They lived in beautiful long houses, and the winter was considered to be the season of the highest medicine. And people would come together for what they called spirit dances. Everyone in the community was considered to be a medicine person. Everyone in the community had a medicine power, and they would come to dance their medicines with one another, to tell stories, to sing medicine songs, and to feast, and to engage in potlatches. Traditionally, they're called pishelths, but that mispronunciation, potlatch, is what came down to us. It was a really warm
Hmm.
time, and one of the things that made it so interesting was that, like with any group of people, there could be some pretty heavy politics going on at the present, but people still came together. People still shared their medicine. People went in with the intention of healing one another and with the intention of doing whatever they needed to do for everyone in the community to unfold and to share their gifts with the community, because it was felt, and this is true in every indigenous culture I've gone to, it was felt that the community as a whole could only be healthy if the gifts and the potential and the talents of each individual in that society were nurtured to full fruition. So everyone was invested in every member of that community coming to full fruition, being healthy, being being whole, and in a place where their spiritual gifts were allowed to shine and benefit everyone present.
Hmm.
Um,
Well, thank you,
yeah.
James. Yeah, yeah, that really sets a good tone and a context for thinking about this. And I want to open it up a little bit and really expound on some of the principles of community that you touched upon. I want to bring in a few more friends here, and then have them introduce themselves. Let's see. This is my friend Connie Messina, a great educator and teacher of literacy, an advocate, activist of learning, and author and school counselor. And my friend Jane Cohen, who is a brilliant practitioner and healer in the San Diego area. I've known Jane for about 30 years as as well, and I've seen her do really quite amazing work. It's like there's certain kinds of healing and such that I think Jane is really kind of the master in getting into those particular zones with people. And let's see, and uh, Amy Morgan is also a teacher. She's a teacher. She works with um, different young people, and is also an intuitive, a spiritual practitioner, and has been a nurturer and developer of other teachers and practitioners as well. And so, Amy, if you like, you can turn your camera on too. We'd love to see you if we can. And oh, there you are. Yeah, there you are. So, if you'd like to introduce yourself, Connie, and chime in.
Well, thank you, Michael. It's great to be here. Like you said, I've had a career of teaching and school counseling and doing traditional kinds of healing and helping students. And and then I found that I really needed to do something for myself, you know. So Michael has wonderful workshops that we do every Wednesday night, and I find that that helps me get through the week. You know, I had a high school student tell me one time, after a counseling session with him, he said, "Who do you go to when you need to talk?" And I thought, wow, it's pretty intuitive of this kid, you know, but it made me think, yeah, what do I do when I need help, you know? So I did spend a winter in North Dakota, and so I got to do sweat lodges and some of, you know, the native processes, and that's wonderful. And so I think there's all kinds of community and healing, and it's nice to share with each other the different strategies that we've done. But
Mhm.
as I get older and I'm not traveling around as much, I like being able to connect online with Michael and the community that we've created uh, in our workshops. So I'm looking forward to meeting new people tonight and learning some new things.
Okay. And Jane, if you'd like to chime in a little bit.
Yeah.
And
See, introducing myself. So the easiest way to describe myself is that I'm an NLP and timeline master practitioner and hypnotherapist, and have a private counseling practice in which I do a process which is a combination of NLP timeline, which I studied and learned, and the life is designed to work thought system that I developed over 10 years or so, bumbling my way through life. Sort of how but anyway, I came up with a pretty comprehensive thought system and have written a book of that title and describing it. And let's see, I love the work that I do because I love relating to people on a deep level. And when you're a counselor, that's what you do. You get down to the nitty gritty, and I'm very intuitive also, to sort of get to where I bring people into the present moment, which is where we can get to the root of the problem. And then I facilitate clearing limiting decisions that are holding the dysfunction in place. But I love living in that deep level of really connecting in the present moment. And my idea of community, I'm sort of living it right now. It's an unintentional community that's sort of happening. When you live with people, you bump up against them and things come up, and you have a choice of whether to cause that to split things apart or bring things together. And so, generally, when you bump up against each other, somebody or both of you are triggered. Stuff comes up, and you can be angry or feel like attacking and so on. But if you come into the present and you recognize your own trigger and you recognize the person where they really are, their real selves, it can be highly transformational. So in a sense, I'm for intentional community. It's sort of unintentional in the fact that we're just living. And living, it matters if someone's stepping on your toe or stealing your food, or whatever it is when you knock into each other when you're living with each other, or they're putting their I don't know, whatever they're doing. People do annoying things when they live together sometimes. And but that's actually an opportunity for transformation. And so, and I love that phrase, when two or more of us are gathered, there's love. There is potential for connecting with the divine, which is, it's my objective to live in divine connection always.
Mhm.
And so I don't know if that's enough of an introduction.
Oh, okay. Okay, very good. Thank you. Thank you. And Amy, could you tell us a little bit about yourself? Uh-oh, we can't hear you. Uh-oh, unmute yourself.
My mute keeps muting itself automatically. I think it's good now.
Oh, okay. All right, well, we can hear you now.
Okay. I'm Amy Morgan, and like Michael said, I've been in education for my whole career, so I've worked with all of the age groups. Right now, I am counseling at an alternative high school. And it's interesting because I think there's all different types of community, right? I have my work community and my family community, but it was really refreshing finding Michael's community because I think it was the first community where I really felt understood, or I could expose maybe things I couldn't expose in other communities because you could feel right away that, it didn't resonate with people. So it's been really nice to have a community online where living in the Midwest, it can be challenging finding people with similar beliefs sometimes. So it's been really nice, even though Connie's very close to me. So, and that's how I met Michael. So no coincidence.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So I wanted to really get into the idea of community, and really taking the idea of community further, like taking it further into the idea of establishing and understanding these what I call these new modes of kinship, and ways in which we connect that are different from the ways that we've always connected in the past, because in previous times in human history, it was essentially your fellow villagers, fellow people in the tribe, people in your group via proximity and such. So now we've got this technology, these means of communication, in which we've been able to, even through the time of COVID especially, we've been able to establish like community in cyberspace and do it globally. We were able to establish um, when COVID hit, we established the Spiritual First Responders program, where we just gathered to support each other, and then that evolved into the course in self mastery, in which we gather and we discuss things that are about deep levels of spirituality, and how there has been this challenge in terms of our own growth and evolution and attainment and such. So it's been this very friendly and warm opportunity for bonding, and it's like through that contact that we had with each other, that we've built up over the years. We've been able to do some extraordinary things. Like I live here in India, and when I arrived here, it was the community that I was connected with that allowed us to create a food program during the time of COVID, that helped essentially kind of save the village and the community here. And through our little association, we were able to like feed over 6,000 people. And so much was able to happen because we were able to bond and commune and work together. So in a sense, it's like we already have a community that is viable and working and functioning. But I really like the idea of taking it all further and facilitating even deeper the connections, because as I said before, I'm of the belief that is essentially the principle, the truth of that which is going to allow us to thrive as a collective, as as people, as a species. It is our challenge, our task, and draw further the the ways in which we've done it in ancient times, but to take it into the future, take it into the challenges that are happening in the world with humanity on the globe now. So anyway, I want to open it up and let's have a discussion. Let's see what more can come through. And so I'd like to have us all kind of show up. Okay, here we go. Okay, and yeah, and really kind of, talk about like the heart of community. Like, what is it really about? And so, if anybody would like to chime in.
Well, I think, am I unmuted? Are we all unmuted?
No, we can hear you. Yeah.
Okay. I think really we could safely say that all the strife in the world today is because people don't know how to form community, especially with people who are different than them. Sometimes it's easy to have community when it's, your own people or your own culture or whatever. But I think it's time that we have got to learn that we've got to be able to form community with everyone and get over all of this anger and hatred. And so if it can start with little groups like us and we can spread the word to other people, I think it's a wonderful opportunity to do something positive in the world. And I'm so happy to meet the other, well, I know Amy, to meet the other people on the call tonight.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think that what you bring up in terms of like the conflict and the strife that we see play out before us, all of the drama. I think a lot of it has to do with people's sense of survival. If people feel like their survival is threatened, that becomes the crux of it. It's like one can see others as a threat to one's survival, but it's like we're being invited and compelled to learn to see the others as the key to survival. You see, as what facilitates the survival and and thriving. And this is kind of like the challenge that's before us. And I see it as a spiritual challenge. Do you see what I mean? It's essentially a spiritual challenge, and it is the challenge to find, do the deep soul work, as I like to say, and find the lines of connection, to find the kinship that's there. You see,
Yeah.
And Jane, it looks like you have some thoughts.
Yeah, this is a sort of complicated subject to understand, or maybe not, just finding the right words. The difference between, so people often start out thinking that the other person is against their survival or against them in some way or another, and switching that to the opposite, which is where the road to survival, each one of us opens up survival rather than closes it down. Sorry, got a frog in my throat. And that can be tricky. How that gets shifted is you have to start with yourself. So, like, for instance, when I get triggered by one of my housemates, And so what I tell people in relationship, because I also do couples counseling, is if you're triggered, say it. You know, I am triggered, because that gets you out of what I call a substitute world. So when you trigger, you're not really there with the other person. You're seeing them as a symbol. And as we tend to do that with other people pretty easily. And we think that this sort of hallucination is actually true. And then you're sort of in defense mode. The moment somebody says, I'm triggered, that takes them out of that frame of reference to a larger truth. And then it's sort of much less enemy territory. That means, okay, I'm not in my right mind right now, but I want to be. I want to be here with you. So, it just opens the door to start transforming the situation. But yeah, that switch between seeing the other person as threatening to our survival to enhancing our survival is really the key. You put that well, Michael. That's really important, and learning how to do that is extremely important. So when we do that with people who are going towards consciousness and who want consciousness and understand about consciousness, that's one thing. But when you're related to people who don't even know what that means, that's quite another. So I guess we just start with people who are at least on that path or open to that concept.
Yeah. It's interesting to me. It's like my take on it is that we're in a world now in which there's a kind of an urgency, meaning that it's becoming more and more necessary and critical for us to kind of get that now, is to go deep and find the connections, find the lines of kinship, establishing new concepts of kinship. It's like we are forced to, because things are happening so fast, so quickly. It feels like the stakes are higher, and so what we are experiencing, I would believe, collectively, is a kind of a generalized anxiety that seems to be sort of running all through a generalized sense of anxiety that we have to face. It's like we have to sort that out, and that at the same time we have these means of communication, technological means of connection that can serve as a forum for speeding up our growth, speeding up our evolution. And in my opinion, that's one of the reasons why we're here at this time. You see, at this particular juncture in human evolution, human history.
Michael, can I ask you?
Certainly.
Where are you experiencing people with anxiety? I mean, are you out in the community in which you are experiencing? Because I'm not out there, I guess.
Oh, no. Well, I like to pay attention to take the temperature of the world. I feel like it's important to be informed, to know, so that it for me, it makes me a better servant, a better practitioner, to engage people like where they actually are at. You see.
So where do you go to do that? Of course, you're in India, so that's a different environment.
Well, I'm also tuned into what's happening. I pay attention to what's happening, like on the planet. Also, at the same time, where I live, I'm constantly interfacing with people all over the world, from all over the world. You see, and so we have, people from Europe, people from North America, people from South America. They come here, and we, sometimes get into conversations about our respective countries and such. So I feel like it's important to, it's our responsibility to know what is happening on the planet. It's not that we get caught up in it, but we have to know. And this is like a to me, it's like a spiritual duty. And
I
it's
wish you
just,
would
it may
write
be
about
just,
it because I feel I'm ignorant about this, and I
Mhm.
think that most people, you seem to have knowledge and perspective that most people don't have, and would be very valuable, like a blog or something, to
oh,
read about this,
or a podcast,
or what?
Here we are.
or a podcast.
A podcast, yeah. Right, that's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, because this is sort of something that is just not in my awareness.
Well, I think it
Yeah,
sounds.
and yeah, go Connie.
I was
Go,
going to say, it sounds like
Connie.
we're all doing the work of community in different ways. Amy's in a traditional school, and James is doing some things. It sounds like mostly in non-traditional ways, James. Or
Well, I'm doing them. I guess most of them would be considered non-traditional. Now that
yeah,
you
yeah,
mentioned that, I've lived cooperatively in a number of places, and I guess some of those places would be considered more traditionally American. But living cooperatively in the USA is still, I guess, considered pretty alternative, even if it's a co-housing situation.
yeah.
Um, I think one of the things that I feel right now, I'm living in San Francisco, and I've had a tendency for most of my life, I suppose, to live in places that are more alternative. I grew up in a community in Chicago called Hyde Park. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Hyde Park. It's the community right
I'm
around the
familiar with the
University of
name of it, but
Chicago.
I don't remember anything about it.
Well, it developed community because it was in an area where all of the neighborhoods around it were going through a big racial change. And as that was happening, everyone in the community sat down together and said, okay, what do we want to do? Do we want to keep the community, or do we want to run? You know, the folk that are here, do you want to stay? And everyone wanted to stay. And this was before I was born. There was a conscious decision that, all right, we're going to stay and we're going to make community. At the time, Chicago was and may still be the most segregated city in the world. And we were an interracial community. There were people there from any number of international and racial and cultural and religious backgrounds. And we just decided we were going to stay put and make it work. And we did. Um,
Pretty amazing.
it makes me sensitive, I guess, a little bit to how community does and doesn't work when it's diverse. I think frequently it's best for that to be an organic thing and for people to be welcomed into it in an organic manner. I think the rest of the cities thought we were a bit exotic sometimes. But, I'm very sensitive to the anxiety going on in our society right now. I think when Obama was president, we had 8 years that kind of felt like a kumbaya moment. And then with Trump right after that, there was a jarring difference. And I think between that jarring difference never really healed. We elected someone else, we went on about our business, and we kind of hoped that the problems would go away. And they didn't go away. And now we may have Trump for another 4 years. I feel like we're being given a choice this year in the election between voting for civil war or voting for World War III. And I think that's creating a lot of anxiety in people. I think people don't know how to address it, you know, and it's not just oddly enough, I'm not that political of a person, but I'm feeling the anxiety now. I'm feeling it on the street. I'm feeling it in how I respond to people at work. I do social services work myself at the present time. Um, and this used to be a very diverse city. It's not so much anymore, and people are very uncomfortable with one another, and just uncomfortable in general, and not knowing how to express that not knowing how to address it, not knowing how to build bridges over difference that have now become more like chasms. That, I don't know, that's my perspective. I feel as though we're having wishful thinking glaze over these differences that have become, in some cases, very acute, armed and acute, and that we don't know how to address that, and that often building bridges across those differences seems difficult, next to impossible. We have a number of people fleeing the country, and a number of people not knowing what to do to keep themselves safe, to keep their families safe, to keep their community safe, or to build community where community needs to be built. I think that cyber community is a wonderful thing, particularly when it is done with a strong groundedness in spirituality, because that's the big problem with cyber community. Frequently, it doesn't have a lot of depth. Now, it has depth, certainly, if you have a gathering of people with a commitment to spiritual growth, and we're meeting from all over the world. That's a very powerful thing. And that's what we have right here. I'm hoping to become more a part of this community. I've been kind of crazy busy and not allowing myself the privilege, but the community that you guys have built is very beautiful. My understanding is that most of the people here are going through a great deal of growth, and you have something special, and I hope that it continues to cultivate and to grow and to touch many new people. It's obviously touched so many already.
Yeah, yeah. It's interesting to me, and it's just a thought here, that what I like to see is that taking of the anxiety that we may perceive or feel and such, and then kind of using it as fuel, or a driver, if you will, that compels us to go deeper. You see, to go deeper and find the connections, find the threads and the commonalities that facilitate, like, a bond and a unity and such. Which is why I say that it is essentially a spiritual challenge that we're in. You see, it's like we can easily get distracted by the politics of things, or the certain situations that may feel threatening in the larger world and such. But the real trick, if you will, is like, how do you turn that into fuel? How do you turn it into the motivation that facilitates community, a bonding? And it's like, that's been kind of like the challenge. It's like we did that. Our little group did that during COVID. When suddenly there was this worldwide pandemic. Nobody knew what was going on. There was lots of fear all around. And it was like, in that instant, I thought of, like, okay, let's gather, put the word out to my friends, family, everybody, and said, let's create a spiritual first responder program. And we did. And it was just about supporting.
What does that mean? What does that mean, spiritual first responder?
A spiritual first responder is acknowledging, you would be that, Jane, people that are on the front lines, first responders, on the front lines in terms of helping, counseling, offering service, offering care, offering comfort, offering learning, and that are interfacing with people. And the acknowledgement was that such people are being exhausted. We're being exhausted, and needed a place to recharge, needed a place to kind of support each other and to share knowledge, share support, share techniques, and just to be there for each other. So it was like a way of using the pandemic, the crisis at hand, as an excuse, a means for getting together and going deeper, being much more present to kind of forge community, simply because it was necessary. It was important. It was necessary to do so.
I'm not sure, but I think I know what you're talking about, and I've sort of often not. I think intuitively, and sometimes I can't find the words to say what I'm knowing. It's like a group of angels.
Ah,
I love that program, Touched by an Angel. I watch it. With a combined focus on love. It's like an energy force of light coming together, to help. Is that what you're talking about?
yes, yes. It was just a spontaneous need that was in the air. It's like, if you
And
remember that time.
the feeling of coming together with others in the same vibration for the same focus. I mean, it's like none other. It is being
Exactly.
in divine energy is total bliss.
Exactly. And so it was like, because of the situation that was going on, it was just a very natural thing to put the word out. It's like, how do we support each other? What do we do to make sure that everyone is all right? That nobody is neglected, or is caught up in lack or helplessness or any of that. It's like, that was the motivation. And we did that. And it was very effective. We were able to do, uh, we were able to help each other. And also, out of that, during that time, we were able to uh, even organize to help many other people, that were in crisis. And it was just sort of like, the magic of community. I think that, it was like one of the silver linings, if you will, of that situation.
Opening the door to the divine energy to support you.
Hmm. Hmm. Yes, yeah.
Jane, I understand that you do healing work. That's correct? I heard you correctly.
Yes.
Correct. Yeah. One of the things that comes up for me in general, as a society, we don't have enough healers. We don't even have enough therapists, and that is the standard approach to dealing with
I'm not
healing
sure
work
if
outside
I
of this.
might call myself a therapist.
No, no,
Here,
no. I'm not saying that you are. I'm saying that when it comes to the healing work that you do, and that many of
yeah.
the others of us do, that's even rarer than therapists. And I don't know
Well,
what
I'm
your
sort of sort of a combination.
yeah.
I do work as a counselor, and I guess it's an alternative form of therapy. And so I am both being a counselor, a therapist, and an intuitive. But there's a particular process, an NLP timeline process, that's a hypnotic process for clearing limiting decisions, which are holding in place whatever the problem is. And so what I do is facilitate the clearing of limiting decisions, such as I'm a failure, I'm not good enough, people can't be trusted, and so on, with the idea that life is designed to work, and the only thing that causes it not to work are distortions of reality caused by limiting decisions.
That's amazing, Jane. That's
Connie,
wonderful.
yeah. Connie, you're muted,
During
so
that,
unmute yourself. Oh, Oh, James, you're saying?
Connie,
I was, Jane, I had mentioned that to ask you a question. During the pandemic, did you notice that there was a greater need for your services, for the work that you provide?
no, actually, other therapist
Oh,
friends of mine did have more people come to see them. Um, I don't, yeah. Um, I think that was a transition. I used to see people in person, and now I only see them through Zoom. And because of hypnosis, people felt as though the hypnosis would not be as effective over Zoom. And I started losing clients. And because people weren't used to it, they are now. So yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it didn't happen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I
Connie.
found one of the more powerful things of the work that you were doing with the spiritual first responders, Michael, was that so many of us were, as Jane mentioned, many of us were all of a sudden experiencing this inrush of people interested in the types of work that we provide, and there just wasn't enough of all of us to go around. So yeah, we were burning out frequently. We didn't know how to recharge, and having your space was frequently a wonderful place for us to go and do just that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a wonderful service we still have to offer one another in spiritual community here.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
just
Yeah. Connie.
wanted to say, can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just wanted to say, because James mentioned the election, and I have to say, yes, there's two parties, but we need to vote for the party that's going to allow us to teach diversity and inclusion in our schools. Because Amy and I understand that. I was an elementary school counselor. I taught kindergartners how to make friends, how to solve problems without violence. And the book that I wrote is about emotional intelligence skills, and it's
Wonderful.
actually an activity book. But I brought in spirituality without calling it spirituality. Like,
Yeah.
one of my lessons is the web of life, and I quote Chief Seattle: "We're all connected in the web of life. What you do to others, you do to yourself." So there's ways to teach that to children, and
Absolutely.
that, I'm sorry, I have to say, the Republican Party is trying to stop us from doing that. And so we really have to make sure that we don't let that happen, that we do vote.
I think it's wonderful that you're teaching that in kindergarten.
Huh?
I think it's wonderful that you're teaching that in kindergarten. Just
Absolutely.
really wonderful.
I use music all the time. One day I was walking across campus and a little kid said to me, "Are you the music teacher?" Because they always saw me with a boombox. I said, "No, I just use music in my lessons. So, and somebody else said to me, "Can you teach empathy?" Yes, you can. You can teach people to have empathy. And so, but the powerful thing for Michael's group, especially during the pandemic, was to help me. Because when you are a helper and you're in the helping profession, you can get burned out. So we need to be able, as you said, James, to, keep ourselves well. And so we're doing both. While we're out there helping others, we still have to keep ourselves well. So I appreciate. I never realized how much you can connect with people online. It really does. It really does work. So
Well, yes, yes. Well, thank you, Connie. Yeah, because that was like really the challenge. Okay, it was like we sort of found ourselves with this technology. This means that and most people had to go into like a learning curve to figure it all out and everything. But for me, it was like the challenge was how to make it meaningful, like how to make it like truly healing and cultivate like the warmth and the connection and the intimacy with this new medium. It's like how to make it real and how to make it, as we used to say back in the 60s, how to make it relevant. for folks, and that was like our great challenge because we had to. It was what we had, and that's what we did. And so it's like at this point, there's like this cumulative wisdom, a bank of like knowing about how we do this, and how we've been able to facilitate things, create projects, and do things as a group. And to me, it's like at this point, it's like the idea of creating a deep soul work community is much more feasible now. You see, it's like my particular vision, if I can share it, is having this forum being a place of networking. It's a place as a place where that we could plug in with our particular ideas, our particular creativity, our services of what we've built a lifetime, spend a lifetime building up to be able to present. And so I see it as like a community that allows us to express, like allows us to present our gifts.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You see, and that we can support each other in the presentation of our gifts. And so I see like a lot of networking. We've been able to put together workshops, workshops in which people from around the world participated in. We created the course in self-mastery. It's like a weekly course that has been going strong for a few years now. And also, I've created an apprentice program. So I've been within the context of this loose community that we have. I've been able to work with a number of apprentices, on a much deeper level, on a regular weekly basis, that has been very, very powerful for people. So it's like I'm always on the lookout for all of the different ways in which the kind and quality of meaningful bonding yields results. You see, it brings tangible things into our lives, which make it better, but also works as a service for the larger community. You see, allowing us as teachers and healers and practitioners to be much stronger, more connected, more supported, and in a myriad of ways. So that's how I think of like the deep soul work community, and and I see it as kind of like more of a friendly drop-in kind of thing, rather than something with a lot of like heavy requirements and obligations and such, but something that people can find their own way to plug in, like find your own way to kind of associate with it and utilize it and engage it as you will, or as you need to. So these are kind of like some of the thoughts that I've had about it. And so I'm real curious as how that resonates, or how that feels with the rest of you. And we'd like to hear from Amy too, if she has something to share.
I was just thinking back to really quick about the community thing. I think one of the nice things too is to take the tenants that are working in our community, where it's a little bit easier because everybody is like-minded, but apply the same things in the communities that are a little bit more challenging, right? Like, I'm just thinking, before our community, I probably wouldn't have been savvy enough to, I have some friends who are have radically different political beliefs than me, right? And they probably don't even know it because I don't even talk about it, but because I've learned from this community how to make them feel safe and meet them where they're at, like you said, I find I can give advice or wisdom without them even having a barrier up if they did know we had these radically different political beliefs and whatnot. So I think it is interesting. It's easy in this community, but if you apply the things that work into your communities that are more challenging, that's what I have found to be most helpful. But I do have a question for you about what you just said is how would a drop-in work with a podcast, or would it not be a podcast, right? Because there was a link to get on in the time. So if it was a drop-in, how would that look?
Okay. All right. Okay. All right. Well, I'm glad that you asked. It gives me a chance to talk about, like the bigger program of what I'm thinking about. I see the podcast as just one component. I'm also seeing like opportunities for networking, getting together with each other as another component of the deep soul work community. Um, we will have particular like workshops and things that we've done for a number of years so far. We've had workshops in uh, various places for various reasons and subject matter and such. And then of course the whole course in self-mastery is like another aspect of like the deep soul community. So the idea is to have all of these different ways of plugging in with various, under various contexts, various criteria. So if being on a podcast is not your thing, you may just enjoy like attending the workshop. You see, um, if if the being in the workshop is not your thing, then perhaps just participating in the apprentice program might work. Might be a better fit for you. So it's like the idea is to create different kinds of opportunities that fit, that may resonate for different people. And so that's the idea. And I put together a Facebook group of which a number of you are already members. But it's like a way of kind of keeping tabs on what's happening. And so what I would request is that people, subscribe to this channel, participate like in the Deep Soul Work Community Facebook group, or any number of them. There's even a chat on WhatsApp, and and other ways of connecting, or just simply being on the email list. But the idea is kind of keep tabs, stay in the loop, so to speak, and figure out your own relationship to the community. So anyway, James. James, you had some thoughts?
You really have the, I'm sorry?
Yeah, you had some thoughts? I thought I saw your hand.
Not really. I'm really glad that this is happening, Dove. You always have led very powerful community, and it's always been a community where people could grow at their own pace and in their own way as themselves. And that's unique. There isn't an overlay. I hate to say this, but frequently there's an overlay that one individual or a group of individuals in a community kind of mandates for the entire group. And that's usually what ends up destroying the community after a while. And it's really refreshing that that does not happen here.
Well, thank you. Yeah. I think it's very much about nurturing, nurturing, which means creating safety. You see the idea of making it inviting and safe, and it's like we're discovering ways of doing that in cyberspace, like online. It's like, and that's kind of like been the challenge. It's like, how do you create the safety so that enough warmth and trust and and familiarity is like all of the building blocks of community can exist. It's like that's been sort of like the challenge, and we've been able to do that, just very, very consciously, like nurturing it all along. It's like all together.
Well, what I would think would be a necessary component is people talking about what's going on in their lives. I don't know which of the formats that you are holding in place. Is that like a group? Being able to share what's going on, the challenges and so on, in the context of the group would lead to what you're talking about.
Yes. Well, that has been well. What I found it is that it's not been difficult getting people to talk about their lives. Especially when it's friendly enough and familiar enough. It's like people once they start to open up, they seem very free and comfortable in talking about what's going on. And I think that's really kind of like, the secret sauce, if you will. It's been the safety.
Yeah.
You see, and that's been actually the glue that's helped it to thrive.
Well, which of your formats does that? Of the different things
we've done that in the course in self-mastery. We've done that. That's happened within the apprentice program, certainly. And people have shared quite liberally in also the workshops as well, because we go, we do tend to go pretty deep. And the nice thing is that a lot of what we've done, especially like the course in self-mastery and such, is we keep there's actually a video record. A lot of it is a lot of it is recorded, and so we've been able to even see and review some of the things that we've touched on. And so there's this is something that has been happening for years now. You see, as I said, this has already been an ongoing community. It's already been happening. The idea is to really kind of pull it together, under a more singular umbrella, and make it easier for people to identify. So when you say, the deep soul work community, you understand that it's a thing, and that there are all different ways of plugging into it. You see, so you figure out what fits, and what has distinguished it is that, yes, indeed, the warmth and the bonding and the intimacy and the community has been, has been there.
Yeah, I think what we get from you, Michael, in those workshops, we can take that out into the world, into our lives and what we're doing. So we're helping ourselves by being in that community so that we can also be in the other communities.
Yeah, yeah. I've seen lots of development and building up of confidence in
Mhm.
in a number of people, and even in the most unlikely people, folks that have been very, very shy and didn't know what they had to contribute. They had no idea of what valuable thing could I possibly say in such a group, and then they discover that. It's like that comes out. You see what I'm saying? And so it does shift how they relate in the world. You see, it's like there's a certain magic and wonder about these kinds of qualities of meaningful connection. It's like when we get a steady diet of that, however we achieve it, when we get a steady diet of that, it makes a difference. You see, it shifts how we sit in our lives in such a way that it's better, and it yields eventually more tangible results. Um, so that's the wonderful thing. Yeah.
That reminds me of the medicine circle again. We would have all sorts of different types of people show up for the medicine circle. Some of them were traditionals who had just come to see what was going on in this group that was more public. And frequently it was the guys who thought they had no medicine at all, absolutely no capacity for healing, that would grow into the most remarkable healers. And watching that over a few years, I guess I was with those guys for about 8 years total,
Hmm.
watching that happen, there was this one woman who came in and she was just in denial about the whole idea that people had medicine. She thought it was ridiculous. She was a fundamentalist Christian. That was absolute nonsense. She turned into the most beautiful medicine woman after a few years. She wasn't intending to, it just sort of happened. And it happened because we had a container where that was allowed to take place. And of course, this isn't a traditional or a culturally specific container here. But, the container that I've seen Dove hold is a space where people not only can be themselves, but can really flourish and blossom into who it is they are meant to be. Um, and that type of Zen, I saw that not only in Native American community, I saw that in African communities too. I've had the privilege to travel a little bit in my life. And yeah, that's the way it's done. It's not about frequently what spirituality has come to mean or has come to be equated with in this culture. It's simply about holding that intention and realizing that there is something there within you and allowing that to organically blossom as it's meant to. And once that happens, there's going to be something you have to share. And it's probably going to be pretty special. Huh?
Well, and that's how we become spiritual first responders. You just automatically are know ways to help people, I guess,
Hmm. Yeah,
by a
yeah.
thought
It's like,
or a word or
yeah, it's
yeah.
like what. Yeah, yeah. And not to interrupt you, Connie, but it's like there have been certain instances in my life where the universe just spontaneously designates you what I call the head shaman in charge at that moment. You see, and it's like something would happen, and it's like, boom, tag, you're it, you're on, do it. And I think that a lot of us find ourselves in those kinds of situations, in those kinds of circumstances, and it's like, um, uh, I like to think that what we will be doing is preparing us, making us equipped for those instances in which we are called spontaneously into sacred service. You see, and to be able to have that, like in our regular lives, to sort of build that what I refer to as the spiritual muscle, if you will. It's like we get together, we practice, we allow ourselves to grow and become clearer, stronger, more certain, more integrated.
So
You know,
is what you're describing the
and
mastery groups?
yeah, that's kind of like one way in which we do it as a group. It also happens within like the apprentice program too. When I work with people individually, it is also a result where they become, you know, more certain and clear and self aware or actualized, if you will. And so it's like, and then the workshops are very important and very powerful too. So it's like the idea is to create like a myriad of opportunities, different ways that this kind of growth can happen, because of course each person is different. You know, each person is different, and they're going to resonate in different kinds of formats and such. And so, and in a good community, you actually want to kind of have a menu. You want to have like a number of choices and ways that people can find themselves. And so this is, to me, this is like the work, you know, what I call the deep, you know, the deep soul work. It's like and it's simply being in a space in which um, there's a sense of safety and comfort and belonging, so that deep soul work can happen. And I like the term deep soul work because it's so all encompassing. It's like all that we do, everything that we do that is meaningful is deep soul work, or it can lead to even deeper soul work. And so that's the idea, that's the thinking behind it. And let's see. So the idea is to really create the heart. You know, it's like, I think we're called to sort of be the heart of the community, the heart of the collective. And this forum, this gathering, uh, I like to think of it as a rich opportunity for such things to, you know, for such things to happen. And so I would ask, you know, the larger audience that will be seeing this to consider, you know, to sort of see if uh, what we say and what is being offered might be something that resonates, that one might see some value in it, or if it feels right, or if it feels appropriate to you, you know, that you have the invitation. We hang out, we gather, we meet, um, we share, participate, and find our way, our place, our opportunity to serve and to grow. So anyway, I want to
Can I add something to that, Michael? This I've known Michael for a very long time. I
Yes,
prefer not
yes,
to say
James.
how long,
I think we all
but
have.
for do you want to say how long, Michael? I'm too shy. At any rate, it's been about 40 years.
Well,
And
I don't mind. Yeah.
I mind. I was getting over myself. But yeah, it's been about
Uh-huh.
40 years. And one of the most amazing things, I guess, not just about Michael, but also, I guess, in the communities we were with, uh, as we're doing this work, let's be mindful of what's going on in our own communities. Where are our communities strong? Where do they need some help? Where they need to be shorn up? Community is such a charged word. There's so much that rings in the hearts and minds of people when they hear that word. And frequently, what it brings up is yearning or longing, because there's something missing in our experience of community. I think that's almost an impossibility not to have that happen in our country right now, or just in our country in general. I mean, we talk about community, but having had the privilege of being in some more traditional ones, frequently I feel that what we want in community is not what we experience. But just because we're not experiencing that in our communities doesn't mean we cannot contribute to its creation. So, looking at those deeper longings, those yearnings we have for deep, rich community bonds, for healing in groups, for sharing in groups, for breaking bread, how can we co create that with members of our community? How can we co create that here? To take a little something from the first responders, maybe we're called here in part not just to create community, but to bring what we experience as our deeper experiences of community into the communities that we're a part of.
Very well said. Very well said. Yeah. Yeah. I would say that, by way of sort of wrapping things up and thanking everybody for being here, is that as we engage, as we work together and such in community, one of the key things is that we discover that there are deeper, more profound ways and reasons that we're together. And that's part of our challenge, is to see the deeper connection. Because I'm of the belief that we've all met each other before in various ways. And it's our challenge to sort that out, to shore up on an even more profound level what those deeper, more profound lines of communion are about. And that's a much more profound source of strength, a source of strength that we're being challenged to uncover, to excavate. And that's one of the things that I would love to see kind of emerge as as we work together. And
I'd like to
gather.
say something about that.
Okay.
It just occurred to me. So each of us are out in the world doing this work and sharing it. I find it very helpful. Well, Connie, what you expressed about what you do in the kindergarten, that's really beautiful. I'm doing something in where I live. My landlord is also a co-housemate, and let's see how to. And he's a Trump supporter and fundamentalist religion kind of person, and he knows that I'm not. And I'm able to connect with him in love. He is a heart-connected person. And I'm able to break through these barriers. He's also really not good at taking care of himself. A disaster about to happen. And so I'm helping him become more empowered. Basically saved his life. But the thing is that connects us all is love.
Mm-hmm.
And loving connection is connecting with the divine, which is utter bliss. So regardless of someone's thought system, you can connect heart to heart. And that brings a truth that transcends these beliefs, because you can experience, what is actually true. So I think each of us in our own way is out there presenting what's true that is undeniable. It's just soul level truth. And that's, you could say, deep soul work. And I think it's going to be, wonderful for each of us to share how we're doing that out in the world.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Jane. Thank you very much for that. So I thank each and every one of you, and also the audience that is listening in, watching in, and I extend the invitation to explore deep soul work. And with that, I say thank you and namaste.
Thank you, Michael.
Bye, everybody.
Namaste.
Bye, everybody.
Bye now. Bye.
Bye-bye.